Welcome to Rough Drafts, How God Writes His Love in Our Stories, a podcast that explores the faith journeys of our friends and neighbors in Burns, Tennessee. Everyone has a story to tell, and in this podcast, we'll hear powerful and inspiring stories of how God works in the ordinary lives of people like you and me. Our stories are unfinished and perfectly imperfect. They are just rough drafts, a glimpse of what is to come because God is still at work, writing plot twists, introducing new characters, and bringing good even from the most challenging circumstances. Join us as we see what God is up to in our stories. Here's your host, Matthew Hyatt.
This isn't a regular episode of the Rough Draft podcast. This is the cutting room floor. This is the thing that our moms warned us should never happen. This is very possibly a terrible idea, but it is one I'm so excited about. Today, I have a co-host, and she is the brains behind this show. She is our creative director. She writes titles and descriptions and graphics and encourages our people and helps our people. She listens for edits to say, are you sure you really meant to say that? She's insane, but she's my favorite kind of insane. It's Liz. Welcome to the show, Liz Kuhns.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this. I cannot even tell you how proud I am. Not of you, but of the podcast. I'm kidding. I genuinely would not. No, oh my goodness, Nana. No, I cannot tell you how amazing it's been to see this take flight. And genuinely, the fly is back.
There is a fly in the room.
Yeah, no, for the audio, there is a fly in the room. So if this is even more chaotic, it is not our fault. It is God's fault for placing the fly in the room.
You should not have done that.
No, so truly, I would not have wanted to take part in a podcast on behalf of Burns Church of Christ without you being the person to really to bring it to life. And you've really done such a great job. You've had amazing guests on the show. I'm so proud of our concept, which we can talk about how this came to be.
Absolutely.
And I think that it's really doing something so much bigger than you and any of the guests that we've had on, and certainly bigger than me. And I think it has the potential to be really to go in so many different directions, but with the same goal of just spreading one another's God stories and sharing and allowing a connection among us that we had probably not lost, but that we may never have been able to make.
Yes. So this is our 30th episode.
30th episode.
I wasn't sure we'd make it to 10.
I know.
Here we are.
Yeah, and people love it.
At number 10, we talked about doing this, and we talked about doing it at 25, and now it's 30. So
right. So I guess we can explain why you called it the cutting room floor.
Yes.
Because this is something that we've talked about. This is not going to be my God story. I'm, one day maybe we'll have me on as a grown-up guest. But for now, I think that you and I we love to have conversations. And I really think that you and I discussing the backstory, which is actually just for those of you who don't know, that was actually the original title for the podcast, was the backstory. But Matthew and I have really worked and collaborated a lot behind the scenes to come up with a concept and a name and a graphic and all of the pieces that made this come together in the beginning. And then since then, it's all you, Matthew.
No. So let's go to the beginning, because people might not know the story that you've been after us for years to do a church podcast.
Yes.
And every time I told you the same thing.
And I finally wore you down. So every time you didn't want to do one that was just going to be you needed there to be a vision, right? Is that the thing that you told me, or you just told me no?
I think I just told you no to start.
Yeah.
I think eventually I felt guilty for just saying no. But
yeah. So let's take it back a few years ago. So for
7 years.
Right. And this is my God story, but this is my podcast story. Is I was overwhelmed when I first heard about podcasts. I loved my sister-in-law, Kristen Kuhns Roberson. She got me started on audiobooks. And it was when I was training for a half marathon, and audiobooks were everything. And it became, that is my, Jeff Kuhns calls it story time. That is I almost always will have some sort of consumption of some sort of media, and most of the time a book. And it's through AirPods or whatever, and usually only one, so I can still be a parent and be a proper human. But it is a wonderful way. It kind of opened this door to like a whole new ability to consume literature and consume really valuable things without me having to find the time to sit down with a book, which I'll fall asleep reading.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I did it a few years ago when I started running.
Yeah.
I discovered that an audiobook plus a trail run
Yes.
is the best combinations in the universe.
It's very therapeutic. You can really get lost in the book and forget what you're doing a little bit.
So it's really funny because of the amount of time I spent doing it. I now have places on roads and trails that are identified with key moments.
Where you were. Yes.
So I'm on the Montgomery Bell Trail on the backside, back 47 at Montgomery Bell Park. And every time I run, walk, hike that trail, there's a spot where I remember where I was when Kennedy got killed.
Oh.
When I was reading Bill O'Reilly's Killing Kennedy.
Yes.
And it's that spot.
I got chill bumps because I was like, what?
And it was really crazy. That was actually on the anniversary of when it happened, and I didn't realize it. It was just, that
is.
See, people sometimes kind of crap on audiobooks and podcasts.
Yeah.
You don't have the same retention. You're not paying full attention.
Yeah.
But like, there are some really cool things you get.
There really are.
In that trade-off.
And there really are. And so being able to, again, to listen to books, and a lot of times some of the best books, they're actually read by the author, the nonfiction books that you sometimes can get. And yeah, some of them can be self-development. Some of them can be Christian books, Christian authors. There's so much value. There's so many valuable, Bob Goff, hello. So many valuable opportunities, and there's free ones. So I'm going to stop talking about the audiobooks, but if you're wanting to, there are 3 apps that I would say. There's Audible, which is the first one, the original one that I heard about. That's where you get a credit a month. You can buy a book, you can consume that book in a month, and you can buy additional credits. There's Libro, Libro. That actually is an app that you can get on any phone, even your non-iPhone, Matthew Hyatt. And you can connect it to an independent bookstore. So every time a book is bought or a credit is bought, it's very similar to Audible. Almost all the same books are available on it, and you can support Reading Rock Book on Main Street. They get a percentage, whereas Audible goes to Amazon, which we don't need to get. Uncle Jeff Bezos.
He's having some tough times.
Yeah, poor guy. Maybe we should.
Yeah, him and Elon Musk are struggling. They're really struggling.
Poor guys. I'll pray for them. And then the third one is Libby, and many people are aware of Libby. It's tied to the library. So public libraries. So if you needed help getting started on any of that, I would highly recommend that if you haven't already thought about it and you don't seem to have the time in the day or the ability to stay awake to really read like you once did.
My two places are the trail and the car.
Yes.
That's where.
Yeah, the car is great any kind of travel time. When I'm getting ready in the morning, I'll have an AirPod in, and it's very like, I will make notes on my mirror in my bathroom with a dry erase marker if it's something that, as I'm listening to the podcast and stuff like that. So it's really just a great opportunity to kind of grow your brain. Grow, wink, wink. Hello, see what I did that?
If you're listening, if you get Burns, you should have known that.
Yes.
If you don't, you get a pass.
Yes. So that being said, this all started with my podcast story. So podcasts were overwhelming. I was like in my safe space of audiobooks, and you just start one and you finish it. But I kept hearing people talk about Serial, the Serial podcast, which was a big one, and it was true crime. And anyways, so I finally buckled down. Yeah, that's right. And so I finally buckled down and because I would download the app and then I would look and I was like, how do you even know what order, what season, like this is too much. And so I finally figured it out, and I'm so glad I did, because it opened the door to a whole new world. And I remember being pregnant with Lila about 8 years ago and feeling like I definitely don't know what I'm doing here, and finding podcasts that had women, Christian women, who were sharing their experiences, advice, pop culture.
I thought this was going to like true crime of
True
moms
crime.
and dads.
No. None of that.
That was later.
Yeah. So I did, I think, probably 3 or 4 years ago. And shout out to you, Matthew Hyatt, Burns Church of Christ won Best Church in Dixon during COVID 2020, the year of 2020. And I want to tell you that I think that has a lot to do with your ability to pivot and step back and punt. And I know it probably drove you to the brink of insanity. And we already know your sanity is precarious at best.
Long time.
But we are so lucky to have had somebody not only who's willing to like adjust and modify and do something outside of the box, but then also you're such a nerd that, and you guys, if you're listening, I promise I'm a nice person. I say that with so much love, but he is.
No, it's a guilty as charged.
Yeah.
I'm as much of a nerd as there is.
And so I remember at that time, you just thinking, I was moved. I was sitting in the living room floor of Pam and Jeff Kuhns' house with my family, and we're able to gather and watch, and you have found a way to stream into all of our homes. And I get goosebumps thinking about the powerful messages that you're able to do. And then we could share them on Facebook. Yeah. And so that's the first time I remember being like, Matthew has a face for radio.
Oh, I've heard that a long time.
No, I'm kidding.
Perfect voice for the newspaper, perfect face for the radio. I mean,
no. I remember thinking that you are going to make it big and that we're going to lose you, because this is going to be something that once the world finds out about you and your ability to navigate.
Hey, we're being way too nice to me.
I know.
Incredibly uncomfortable.
You guys, he paid me $100 to come on this show. I don't know. I'm kidding. So that's when I started asking you about a podcast.
Yeah.
And you said no. And you had a lot going on.
Well, yeah. But the thing was that, I didn't want, there's just so many preacher podcasts. And
yeah.
Like, I don't want to just do another.
Preachers and Sneakers. Isn't that one or something?
Ministers in Mocha.
Yeah.
That's Church of Christ one.
Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you weren't sure that, I think I remember at some point you saying, like, people hear me talk enough.
Yeah. And
while that is true, we hear a lot of you talking. It's also something like you can engage with people and ask questions and be a part of conversations that need to be had. I've always said, I fell in love with you mainly because of Leslie. But you in a pulpit it's magic. But you in a classroom setting where you're able to really back and forth engage, that's your sweet spot. That's your sweetest.
That's my
spot.
favorite place to be.
And so it was a Wednesday night. About, I guess a year ago.
It was a dark and stormy night.
It was a dark. And that we were in class on Wednesday nights, and I don't even remember what the class series was.
I do.
You do? What it is?
Well, we finished the class, and
it wasn't Judges. I know that.
It was after Judges. And we had a week where, frankly, you needed filler. I didn't want to kick off the next thing because...
Of course, and that's where I had my aha moment during filler week with worksheets.
I had been in jail, ministry.
Right. Okay.
And... we had seen some stuff about testimonial that was really cool. I thought, in our church and in our tradition in Church of Christ, we have not done much of testimonials. So that Wednesday night, I kind of laid out a biblical case for we need to share our stories. And in class, we talked about all the Bible and all that stuff and how we're afraid to because we want our stories to be perfect and we want it to be clean. And there's risk in storytelling because what happens if the guy who's been clean from drugs gets up and tells a story, and 2 weeks later he relapses. And we're scared of stories sometimes.
So I want to stop and talk a little bit about that because that does unlock in me something that I think from my childhood, from growing up in the Church of Christ and being a child of divorce and being a human being who struggles from time to time and is broken in so many ways. That's where all the light shines through, right? Yeah. I never was able to put words to it, but I really struggled with the image of perfection. And my favorite thing to say about you when I talk about you or I talk about Burns Church is it's so magical to see somebody who's a Church of Christ preacher who is so very, very, very imperfect for the pulpit. Or I usually say who's willing to be so very imperfect. But the truth is, I have had conversations. A lot of the conversations that you've already had on Rough Drafts is about the danger that comes from putting on a mask of perfection or portraying an unbroken person as a Christian, when the whole concept of grace, the whole concept, the story of Jesus is that we are all broken. We're all unworthy. And this is not something that can be earned. This is not something that, and therefore that's the game changer. That's the magic. And for us to put on a facade of perfection, then people who need Jesus and who don't know Jesus, or people who do want to know more about what's that light shining from within of us, and then visit Burns Church of Christ, and if they see only perfect people pretending to be perfect, then they're going to feel alienated. They're going to feel, they're going to have even more of their secret, silent struggles of feeling that brokenness. And so I think that the testimonial conversation is an interesting one, because it's kind of, at least in my world, it's kind of like just now becoming trendy to like be real.
Yeah.
And I think that it's the most magical thing. I've said magical a lot, and I promise that
Disney's about to sue or something.
Yeah, I don't know. If I break out into song, you'll know. I think the best thing we can do is to share our real stories, the ups and the downs. And we can go through some of these conversations you've had, and we can see them. That is kind of the theme, the underlying theme, which can bring us to following the class where you had challenged us. You literally challenged us at the end of that class. Find a way before next week, or as you leave here, to find a way to share your story and to make it real and to be truly, truly your real story.
Yeah.
Not the redemption part at the end, but all of the things that came before that.
Yeah.
And so I got up at the end of class and I waited, because I might not have waited. I might have come straight for you.
You waited.
I waited around because everybody comes up to you.
Liz is in the corner.
Chit chat.
And she's got her pen out.
Dan Calloway has to tell you something, and then Eric Petty's waiting.
That's right. It's terrible. Man.
And so then finally I get you and I tell you, what do I say?
I'm trying to remember the exact.
I think I said,
you said this is the podcast.
That's what we need. That's the podcast that we need to do.
Yeah. You know that podcast I want you to do? This is it.
This is it.
And one piece that you didn't mention just then.
Yeah.
In that class, we talked about in Churches of Christ with different beliefs about women's roles in church. Mm-hmm. That's a whole thing. One of the things that was a major item in class was women's stories in particular don't get told in Churches of Christ, in Southern conservative churches in general. And one of the things that you led with was this might be a way to work on that.
Yeah. And I think that, at least I know my sweet husband kind of gives me I think I've brought women's roles up enough that I don't want it to seem like I'm challenging the status quo too much, because I promise it's not out of a selfish place that I don't want to be a central. I don't want to be, you up there. That's not my place. That is not my place. However, I do struggle with knowing some people like Debbie Martin, knowing Martha Harding, knowing Miranda Fuson, knowing Monica Gossett and Penny and Marcia Griffin. My goodness, those are women who have stories, and I didn't name them all. I won't name them all. And some of them have not even taken place. My mother-in-law is an angel on this earth, and she's got a story to tell. I think our children, they're so sweet. Oh my goodness. Hearing that perspective, there are so many stories. We will never run out of content to provide if people are enjoying these stories, because these conversations are really doing something that is I'm so proud of.
So it's funny, you said we'll never run out of content. And one of the questions I get is, aren't you worried you're going to run out?
No.
I kind of was the first week.
Yeah.
Like, what are we going to do?
Oh, right. Yeah. The first few weeks, you guys, I wish y'all could have seen some of the like conversations back and forth with Matthew and I, and the lengthy, because he and I think, are both quality over quantity, maybe. And so when we do respond, the quality is there, but it might be 3 pages long from at least me.
Yeah, me too.
And so, but thankfully, you and I understand that about each other. And so we can send each other so many paragraphs and know that the other person will get back. So just there's a lot to be said. I think that these conversations, while we've had Kristen Rhodes come on, but we haven't had Kristen Rhodes and Taylor on together. We've not had Kristen and her mother, Cheryl. We have not had, there's so many opportunities. Kristen, I mean, we've talked some about doing some themed episodes, and there's just, the world is our oyster as far as like, there's a lot of, and we're not going to get away from the heart of it.
So one of the things that has surprised me so much, and I shouldn't have been surprised, but every single one of these times we've done, this is episode 30 now, every single time, the moment the mic goes off at the end, we sit and talk for another hour.
Yeah.
And I have begged people, I'm like, can we start that story again? Because the best stories I've heard were the throwaways they didn't think mattered afterwards.
Well, and think about the name of the podcast is Rough Drafts. So it's okay to decide, wait, there's more to tell, because we are works in progress, and we are.
I did a beautiful episode about her dad.
Yeah.
And it was like a eulogy in all of the best ways.
Oh, yeah.
But she didn't tell any of her stories.
Yeah.
She told
exactly.
her story.
Exactly.
Every guest we've had, I would be glad to have back for another 3 episodes.
Yeah. And I think that will probably happen some. So let's talk about let's talk about the name just for a minute.
Yeah.
Because we started with the backstory. I think that after that conversation, after that Wednesday night class, you and I, you immediately, it was so great, you guys, because every other time I'd brought it up, and it had been a few times, he didn't deflect, but it was just like, we needed more. We need to and then this time he was like, yeah, you're right.
I ordered equipment within a week.
I think you did. And I think you followed up with me, because I was prepared to follow up in a week, or us to be like, yeah, let's talk about it. And then, months go by, but you were committed. And was it at the beginning of the year? I feel like there was also this fresh,
it was right at the
perspective. End of the year?
Either the last Wednesday, December, or 1st of January.
Yeah. So there was also kind of this invigorating attitude of what else can we do? That was the challenge of the story. And we'd had some other classes and other conversations as a church and with everyone about what can we do to reach people who don't know Jesus? What can we do to better know one another and connect with one another? And so
one of my things is if we know each other, everybody gripes about how we've lost civil discourse, and the left and the right yell at each other and call each other. But it's entirely different. You don't talk about people if you know them and you know their story. You understand why they got there.
Yeah. And I mean, building bridges. You did an entire year of themes where you wove that into the messages that we received from you, the classes that we did together, the camp that it was woven deep, and it hit home. I was one who always burned bridges and built walls, now look at me.
Matches,
No, I'm a big. I think that this is something that naturally looking to connect with people is something that I really think I was put on this earth to do, and so it's almost like a drug to me. And so I'm just so glad.
It's just so fun to matchmake people romantically, but you need to know such and such.
That's much sweeter. Can we cut that, and can you change it to where I say that?
No, this is Rough Drafts, and this is the cutting room floor. So
that's right.
Unless you punch me in the face, we're not hitting delete.
So, okay, 30 episodes.
Yes.
30 conversations. Which one's your favorite?
Well, you can't do that to me.
I'm kidding. I love to ask parents of multiple children.
Can I give you 4 or 5?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, Debbie Martin.
Yes.
She started.
She was
this
the
show.
first. She was the first.
Exactly right. And I don't think any part of her wanted to do it.
No, and her, even just her voice. I know that sounds like such a silly thing, but she is somebody who I did know her a little because, I mean, I knew her.
Yeah.
I had gotten to know her a little more because of small groups, which we could do a whole episode on that, because that has been such a wonderful way to build bridges and to connect with one another in a time when people seem to like be severing connections everywhere.
Oh, she's got it. She's full of grace.
She is full of grace. She knows she has come out on the other side of a battle of a lifetime of really loving people.
Yeah.
And loving God. And her story of her childhood, my goodness, she's amazing. She was such the perfect first guest. And that's all you.
Right. No. I mean, it was just, I asked you, I asked Leslie, I asked Penny, I asked a lot of people. I said, who do you think would have a story to tell? Yeah. And most of these I have walked in, and when I asked my question, what's your God story? I don't know what they're going to tell me.
Right.
I didn't know what Debbie was going to tell me. And she was vulnerable, and she was deep, and she was honest, and she was gracious.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I wanted all of these to be.
And she came prepared, didn't she? She had some
she had some notes.
And she really took it seriously for the opportunity that was afforded to her to share her story. And that's a perfect example of somebody who, I mean, I remember when you first started sending me, so a little behind the scenes baseball, when you guys record an episode, then you and I work together, Matthew, to kind of get some notes together, come up with a title. And in order to do that, I have to do my due diligence, which is to listen to the episode before it's released.
Liz is listener zero. She's
That's right. Patient zero. So, and it is the honor of my life. So thank you so much for allowing me to have it. That being said, I just remember you sent, because you recorded back to back to back. You recorded several, I mean, well before we released.
Yeah.
You'd recorded what, 8?
Yeah, probably 7 or 8.
7 or 8. And which again, you guys, the fact that he was invigorated by this idea was just everything. So, and you can hear it, you can feel it. I think it has so much to do with the success.
Yeah.
So that being said, you sent me, and I was like, oh, it's not going to get better than this. Yeah. Debbie Martin.
Okay, I was worried about it.
And
it was so good.
And then Peggy Dunnigan. Yeah. Oh my goodness, which I had talked to Peggy, and I'd heard more about her story. And I was like, well, it can't get better than this. And then Greer.
My goodness. I have had more conversations with people about Greer.
Greer Henson. I had somebody on my Old Timers Day, which Andy Arms, if you're listening, because she's an avid listener. She doesn't even know you at all. And
one of the lucky ones.
She was one of the few people who really came out of the woodwork early on and said, what y'all are doing is great. She doesn't go to church here. And it just makes me so happy. But when Greer's episode was released, we had an Old Timers Day meeting, which we're all, look, you want to talk mental health?
You got to be crazy to run Old Timers Day.
I mean, it's really, that's a perfect example of you would never know the story of Greer Henson from looking at him. Now, I have to say, I can't talk about Greer Henson without acknowledging that I have told him to his face that he is the cult leader, that if he ever uses the power for evil, that I will follow him. I'll drink the Kool-Aid, and I'm bringing everybody with me. That's right. And since then, I've also told Marcia Griffith the same thing. So
learning. Never work together. It's just the end of the world.
It's over. It's over. So and Peggy Dunnigan was amazing too.
That have stopped and said, Greer helped me. I sent this to a friend who is struggling with depression but doesn't want to get help. I sent this to a friend who is afraid to talk about. He thinks Christians don't have depression.
Again, that's one of those masks of perfection. I think the conversation about mental health inside the church, period, across the board, doesn't matter what denomination, is not something that has been welcome or discussed. It's not. People don't use their words and say it out loud.
Since the show started, I think I have made 10 referrals to mental health services. It's a direct result of what our guests have shared. Yeah. And I'm so happy because a lot of those have come back and said, wow, I talked to the people at Agape or Humble Spirit Counseling in Dixon, Walnut Street. And man, it helped me. So I talked to Bud Lambert, and it helped me,
Yeah, Bud Lambert, and this isn't my God story, so I don't have to get into it, but he was one, he really was a game changer. And that's a counseling minister. I have a degree in psychology. I can't, unfortunately, counsel anybody, but I believe wholeheartedly in the need for all of us to take the time to talk to somebody about our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, our lives, our experiences. And Bud Lambert happened to be somebody who, during a time when I really needed him, or I needed God, he made me realize that I cannot earn it. So the shame and the guilt that I was drowning in because of whatever mistake I'd made, that because of God's grace, that I can be good because I'm saved, not be good to be saved.
Absolutely.
So that's a great example.
It's just been neat. The stories.
Yeah.
Okay. The podcast has been fun to record.
So fun.
But what's really fun is Tuesday. I can count on text Tuesday when it gets released where people say, I didn't know that about Brandon, or I never heard. Wow, Maggie is so smart.
Oh, Maggie. Maggie said my name on the podcast. That was.
I thought about warning you, but
no, I'm so glad you did it. Justin Dawson. Justin is the one who gave me the heads up, because I was working on making my way through and listening to all of them. And he said, have you listened to Maggie's? And I said, no. And I'd run into him, and I said, not yet. She's on deck, because I had listened to his. And he said, you need to listen to it. And I was doing the dishes when I heard she was exceptional. I'm so proud of all of them. I feel like if we talk too much about anyone,
we'll get bogged down here.
But I do
But I got a guy who texted me after listening to, I don't know, maybe 10 episodes or so, and he said, it occurred to me, I don't ever have a place in my life where I hear the stories of women.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, this has helped me listen. Mm-hmm. I thought, how cool is that?
Yeah.
And that's not us. That's the people who keep showing up to do this show.
Yeah.
Who are willing to open the doors and go to some scary places and tell the truth.
And a lot of those stories, Peggy Dunnigan talking about her husband, a lot of the stories are the stories of the women are the most biblical, most, Christian. They're walking the walk, and it's an important story for people like me who are, feel like barely hanging on at times to hear, and I'm so inspired by every single one of them.
What I love is the way that different themes have come out.
Yeah,
there's been difficulty in childhood. There's difficulty at work. There's there are the adoption stories. Monica and Penny's are just so cool.
I mean, I had no idea. Monica is somebody who I was always a little bit scared of.
as you should be. And
I adore her. But the way that she can somehow just give Katie or Caleb just a little bit of turn her head a little, and they kind of respond. And then the way you respond to her and your obvious, your palpable fear of her ability to in your life at any moment
pops up. It's like you maybe have a cardiac event.
No. I've always admired her. I just never knew her, and I certainly didn't know her story, Jess's story. And that, if y'all haven't listened to that episode, go find it and share it with any of your friends who have that, and Penny. I mean, it's just. I could go and just make sounds all day about every episode. That's not a good podcast.
So cool. Kelsey.
Yeah.
The kind of brutal honesty about when you're in the pediatric ICU, you can't put platitudes on it. You can't put plastic on it. You need to be real.
Yeah.
Phrase, fit in the suck.
Yes.
What a phrase. Don't blame Jesus for this. What a line.
She and Will both, when they've talked, when they've had something to say in class, it's like I stopped and I listened.
Reason.
Yes, because they are so thoughtful, and they're so smart, and they're so well spoken, which is something that I admire so much, because
I just run my mouth.
I'm spoken. I don't know that I'm well spoken.
Man. And then Monica was the reason that we had some of the kids episodes.
Right. Yeah. Let's talk about that, because we talked about, and just so y'all know, if y'all have, I think we could probably end the episode with us challenging everyone to give us their ideas. It doesn't mean that it can happen, because Matthew only has so many hours in the day. But themed episode, we're going back to school. We've talked about, we wish we could have done a teacher's, episode.
Yeah, we were going to do
Mother's
first
Day.
responders.
I wanted,
We had Wes.
yes, first responders
Justin, we
week.
had Brandon.
Yeah.
Fire, EMS, and police.
And we had them all lined up. We just didn't. So we've got some ideas for some themed episodes. I wanted for your Mother's Day episode, I wanted you to have your mom and Leslie on. I still think that's a great idea. But now Mother's Day, we got to wait till.
You're going to have to talk them into that.
I know.
I'm not powerful enough to do that.
Well, or Father's Day, Tommy and Marshall or somebody like that.
A few generations.
Yeah. And
the Honduras episode was more fun. I
that
wasn't sure how that was going to work.
That was fun.
6 of
Everybody,
us crowded
I
around the
know.
table.
I can't imagine what it looked like.
Nuts.
But
We're kind of in each other's laps.
yeah, there's opportunities for, and if I think that we've done some community episodes. So let's talk about the kids, because I'm sorry, I'm getting us off.
We've got to. Man, Monica just said kids need to get to tell their stories too.
Yeah.
And I said kids scare me because
Fair.
they're small and they have sharp teeth and stuff.
Yeah.
She said, well, this was my favorite part of childcare, was having conversations with kids about God.
Yeah.
You're a better preacher than I am. Yeah. So that's why she co-hosts these.
And
episodes.
meanwhile, when Lila asked me who made God, and I'm like, you need to ask
your dad.
You.
Ask your dad.
No. I think it says so much about Monica, the fact that she loves those questions, those conversations,
Yeah.
and to turn the tables on the children and ask them. I got to be honest, when I initially heard y'all were having kids, I was like, oh, that's great. I had no idea you were going to ask such hard-hitting questions.
Yeah, he got a little intense.
Those are some deep
I
comments.
need you to rephrase that. You just said when
Y'all.
you and Monica are having kids.
Oh.
And I mean, I'm just
Okay, when you
yeah.
his watch is alerting him.
God. Is there a paramedic around here?
When
With defense attorney.
we, as a podcast, we're going to feature children as our guests, because what we know, and this is biblical, that children are the closest thing
Yeah.
that we get.
So we've had
Forgot
my
it.
favorite boy, Caleb.
Oh, and let's stop and talk. You can't just skip past that, because I've known that child for how
His whole
old is he?
life.
For
10.
10 years. I've known that child for 10 years. I've had many conversations, bread dipped in ranch. If you're listening, Caleb,
Yes.
if you know, you know. The kid is a genius. I knew that. I had no idea that he was a Bible scholar and that he was my favorite person on earth.
Well, there's Caleb. There's Maggie. There was Brogan.
Uh-huh.
He was just so thoughtful. And it was really fun to have the 1-2 punch of dad and son, Wes
and
Benjamin Brogan,
Benjamin.
Yes.
Yes.
His talk on dinosaurs
Benjamin
and geology.
Oh my goodness. What was the animal that he was talking about? Not sharks. It was something in the ocean. Right?
Oh, what was it? I don't remember.
Oh,
he's
I know.
And then your favorite girl.
My girl, Lila.
Your girl.
Shy little Lila.
So, this is podcast. This is audio only.
Yes.
And some people do video podcasts and stuff like that.
Did she think it was video?
Well, about half my guests have been relieved when they got here.
Yeah.
There weren't cameras.
Yeah.
But I wish hers had been, because she is just, we gave her Play-Doh. We gave the little kids Play-Doh.
Oh, that's
as it kind of
smart.
distracts them. It makes it a little bit easier. But she was just in full Lila cake mode.
Yeah, Lila cake.
And she was adorable. She's kind of rocking in her chair, making these creatures and holding them up and showing them to us while she's talking. It was so fun.
Yeah. Well, she was so proud to have been able to be on, and she did a great job. And some of my favorites, she's not a listener yet, so I'm going to go ahead and say I can talk about her when she says, when y'all are like, what do you think Jesus will look like? And I'm like, she's going to say he's warm. She's going to say it's the light shining from. Well, we'll know what he looks like because of the pictures and the videos that they show us in Bible class. I'm like, oh boy, we got some work to do there.
Super literal on that one. I liked it.
Super literal.
Well, we've got some good shows in that tank too.
Yes. Yes.
So we record these, and usually what I do is if I have a week that's not crazy, I'll try to get 3 or 4 recorded, and then I don't record any for a while.
Right.
We don't release them necessarily in the order that they get recorded.
Right.
So what stinks is some people get theirs recorded and have to wait 2 months before it comes out.
Yeah.
But we're trying to kind of balance, we don't want it to be all guys episodes or all young people's episodes.
Yeah. Or all heavy. Not to say that some are
fun. Or
most of them are super lighthearted. This is probably going to be as lighthearted as it
The Jason Allison episode was.
Oh, yes, it was fun.
I love
I didn't
Jason.
even know I knew him
No, you didn't.
until weeks later.
Yeah, I've got some Aaron connections.
Yeah, Aaron. Yeah. So my dad has known him since he was in diapers.
We should get your dad on here.
We should get my dad on
Would he
here.
say yes?
Oh, yeah, he would say yes. He loves to talk.
Yeah.
He loves to talk about himself. He has a story to tell to you.
Yes, he does.
So
He's got more than one.
I will line it up.
Okay, make it happen.
Yeah, I will.
But right this moment, we have episodes with Tyler Quinn, Daniel Leonard from over at Chapel Hill, Phil Cochran, Danielle Gopp, and Mike Chandler that are in the tank that you'll be hearing soon. And also, we have Emily Dawson and Sydney Watson. Jenny.
And Jenny Davis. Yeah, that's right. So we've got some good, what did you say, in the chamber?
I call it in the tank.
Oh, in the tank. That's much better. No, in the chamber is like fun. So let's not. But
we have probably another 12 who have said yes. We just haven't scheduled it.
Yes. If you're listening and you want to be on the show, we'd love to hear your stories. So I would say just reach out to either one of us. We can make it happen. And then if you're listening and you know somebody who they've shared their story with you and you think that story needs to be heard by other people, let us know. We will con them into coming on the show. No, we're not going to con them into it, but we will reach out to them and see if they'd be willing, because a lot of people are honored to get the chance to have a conversation with Matthew Hyatt.
That's not
so.
Well, what's funny is almost nobody wants to do this. I've had 4 or 5 people who have texted and said, I want to do this.
Yeah.
But almost everybody comes in saying, I don't know about this. And almost everybody leaves saying, this was super fun. Thanks for letting me do it.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think more of the conversations you've had in the episodes that have been released, outside of like an Archie or somebody like that, have started with like, are you mad at me that this is about to happen? And everybody's like, yeah, pretty much.
I hate you.
But somebody like Justin Dawson, to say that you you're not interesting. Yeah. You have 100 kids and 300 jobs. Like, you are so interesting.
Okay, so he was another one where the stories, he stayed in the office another hour. The stories he told me afterwards.
Even more. Mm-hmm.
So Susan's coming on soon. She doesn't know it.
Susan Bradford. Susan Dawson.
Yeah, Susan Bradford too.
I love Dawson. She's really
you got to retell the Justin stories he didn't tell.
Yeah, Susan's the secret sauce in that family. Justin's great. He's the face. He might think he's the face and the beauty, but she's the beauty and the brains.
Absolutely.
So,
and another thing people have asked too is, while this has kind of been connected, affiliated with the Burns Church, it's not exclusively that.
No.
And I want it to be, I want this to be largely our faith community and our community.
Yes.
So, 80-90% of the episodes are going to be members of Burns, connections to Burns.
Yeah.
But not everybody.
Not everybody. And you were gracious enough to feature our Old Timers Day Grand Marshal on the show, Mr. Mac Adams, and that was an amazing episode. Hearing his recall of his stories that happened nearly 100 years ago.
Seriously. So what's funny is almost none of the episodes do we edit at all.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I try to tell people. This is just a conversation.
Right.
You say something silly.
Draft.
It's who cares if we pick our nose or cough or whatever. It is what it is. Mac had so many stories, we had to cut out about half an hour.
That's right. That's right. Well, he's lived a long life. He's got a lot of stories to tell.
It was so cool, though.
I think that's a great example of a community. Jason Allison, like you mentioned, Archie was not from within our church. The Honduras team was people from within our church family, but that kind of spoke to a greater cause. And then, do you have any other community guests lined up, or do you? I know that you've got a list here that we both recognize some names
who maybe aren't quite ready to schedule it yet.
Yeah,
that we've got our eyes on.
Yeah,
I don't want to ruin all the surprises.
Okay, yeah, we're not going to spill the beans.
But I'm really excited about some of our community friends, and I want this mostly to be just normal people.
Yeah.
Not that I know any of those. But,
normal people.
I don't want this to be a show full of preachers. I want this to be.
Right. No, we don't want that. Who would listen to that? Although it's also important to feature leaders in our church, and I think that there's opportunity there. And so what you and I talked about originally with me coming on, I would love for us to carry this conversation on from time to time.
Yeah.
if you'll allow me back in.
Of course. Allow you back into your idea.
No. Allow me back in, and we can, talk more. We can just talk.
Yeah.
Because we both love to do that. But we can also talk about some of the guests that you've had on and some of the places we're going.
Yeah. Well, I think definitely come episode 50.
Yeah.
We need to do this again.
Yeah.
I don't know what'll happen, but my goal right now is 100 episodes.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I want to see us get to.
I think that's a great...
We get there. Who knows? Maybe we stop there. Maybe we keep going. Who knows? Who knows?
Well, and there's my favorite podcast, again, going back to the podcast, not of this podcast, but my favorite...
The ones about husbands who get murdered and wives get away.
No, I'm not talking about true crime.
Leslie's.
No, but they have kind of mini series within whatever they're doing regularly, kind of like the kids episodes, kind of like to have kind of a shorter version from time to time of something that is just a conversation, or we can do an Enneagram series, or we can do
So you're trying to sucker me into tough stuff. I see what you're up to.
No.
Well, the kids thing has been super fun. And
I think so too.
This has been one of the most fun ministry projects I've done in years.
Yeah.
Because, I talked to Debbie. She was in my small group.
Yeah.
But I had never cleared 2 hours out of my schedule and said, Debbie, what's your story?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Probably unless I was preaching her funeral.
Yeah.
Or doing this.
Wow.
And man, this is so...
Now you're set, but you're not going to have to preach it for a while. But
yeah, Debbie, you need to live forever.
Yes, you do, please.
Carol Todd's stories.
She is.
She was hilarious.
She's so funny.
Frank talking about the loss of his wife.
Yeah. And I didn't know the extent of that story.
Yeah.
I did not. I had never heard him personally tell it. Brandon Wilkerson talking about what he went through, and he and Alicia both went through, and hearing that, it was amazing. I think it's all been so great. Kristen's
was super special. Mm-hmm. So I loved how carefully, and I think I can say this, she told her story in a way. She wanted to be careful of the fact that she's got a young daughter that she doesn't want to say or do anything that hurts her, but she wants to help her. That's so cool.
I remember talking to her afterwards about how eloquent she was about speaking with kindness and love about everybody, despite there being some stories. I also want to talk about Martha Harding's story, because I think Martha's was one of the first that I texted you. I think Greer, I don't know if I had listened to Greer's yet or not, but Martha's I listened to, and I texted you immediately and said, this is what we were needing. This is the testimonial of somebody who from all accounts, I assume she was the superior athlete that she was. I assume that I've been in her house. It is perfect. She seems perfect. Her story is imperfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect because God made it that way. But my goodness, to be able to hear that story and to hear it from her, it was awesome.
So that show she used as a vehicle to tell some parts of her family, parts of her story that they didn't yet know.
Yeah.
And I love.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not appropriate for every person, but it was for her and for them.
Yeah.
When I think about what makes an episode good, it has nothing to do with me or the editing.
Mm-hmm.
What it is when somebody is vulnerable.
Yes.
And says, here's where I was.
Mm-hmm.
Here's where I am.
Mm-hmm.
And here's how I got from here to there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily know what's next.
Yeah.
But this is it so far.
Just real. Like that
well,
real vulnerability is something that I think we could do an entire episode on.
Yeah. But one of the books I've enjoyed a lot in the last few years was Brene Brown on Power of Vulnerability.
Oh, yeah.
And that was ringing loudly in class and in this idea.
And I think that it is something that has kind of as well has kind of unlocked another layer kind of what my faith always was growing up, and what it's been in the past 5 to 10 years is it's a lot different. And I've loved hearing Martha and I don't know if it's Martha or Monica talking about the studies that they did on the Holy Spirit, women gathering, and Marcia Griffin's 2-part episode. You guys, if you've not listened to it, stop what you're doing.
Yeah.
Turn us off right now.
Okay, it's funny about Marcia's. I don't pay a whole lot of attention to the stats just because it doesn't fit.
The most listened.
So it didn't get a whole lot of listens at first, but every single person who listened to it called me and said, this is the best one I've listened to yet.
Yeah. She's amazing. Again, the cult leader who, if ever she chooses to use it for evil.
And when Marshall Sullivan prayed for us,
he can bring us all to our knees.
Jason and Megan and Baby Bits.
Oh, yeah. That was a Mother's Day special. That was a Mother's Day very special. And that was wonderful. And that's an example of those two people can come on individually and share their individual stories. They did touch on it, but there's more story there to tell.
And I know some of it is just where we are sitting. Yeah. We're sitting in the office at church.
Yeah.
But it has been interesting to me, considering what I do for a living, how many of these stories have touched on church hurt, or where the church either made something better or didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's been really instructional.
I appreciate that you, as someone who could be perceived as, what is it? Is it a vehicle of the church? I don't know.
I've been called a tool before.
As a tool, as a leader in the church who's dedicated your life to this work, is not afraid, that you are not afraid to acknowledge those times when churches or individuals within a church have, maybe even with good intentions, or maybe to try to keep out of fear, they've made mistakes, or they've treated people in situations that is the opposite of what was needed at that time. And
you heard ultimatums, you heard hypocrisy.
Yeah.
Carol's story in episode 5 about catching the priest in his whitey tidies coming out of the aunt's bedroom. The way she tells the story, it's hilarious. But when you listen to the story, it's clear that was kind of a moment when something about religious life shattered.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us who have grown up in the church, and it might be even people who are still fairly new, and who you may have experienced something similar where what you thought was actually wasn't quite as shiny or as beautiful.
So one of the reasons I regularly tell stories at church about someone who saved seats and ran someone off is because that story is instructional. We're not going to be the church that saves seats and runs someone off.
No.
So telling the stories even when they hurt.
Yeah.
I know we're about out of time, but looking to the people who might hear this, who might be future guests, Tyler was funny. He said, I don't want to listen to any because I don't want to know what I'm going to do before I record mine.
Yeah.
But, to our future guests, the thing that you're going to do to make this show really cool is just say, here it is. And don't be afraid of hurting me or hurting the church when you tell your story. Yeah. Share what you can share. And be brave. Yeah. And go deep, and you're going to make a difference.
Yeah. And I think, I'm not trying to offer advice, but I will say what I have gained from the episodes that have resonated with me and left me making notes on my mirror and in tears. I mean, true tears, sobbing. Good tears, happy tears, as I like to call them with Lila, and tears of grief and sorrow, is the fact that it is a connection that I am making with someone. And if you are willing to be vulnerable, if you're willing to open yourself up and to share your real story, and it doesn't have to be perfect, you guys, because you can come back on, you can, you'll have the final chance to listen to it before it's released. And if there's something that keeps you up at night, don't be afraid, like what he's saying.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to really open up and to really share yourself with others, because it's offering a bridge, it's building a bridge to so many people who you may not even know.
Anybody who's going to mistreat you because of you sharing your story has demonstrated that they're not a person you need to be concerned about because they're a trash person. Was that
true or false that Leslie Hyatt told you something like that one time? I don't remember the wording that you did. I think it must have been in an episode because I remember hearing it. But like, people who are going to judge you for it, don't You don't.
I wrote something that was critical of something that was very popular.
Yes.
And I was nervous about whether or not I should publish it. And she said, you're not trying to make friends of the people who are supporting this garbage.
Yes. It might have been something I shared. I don't know. There's something that I shared that you wrote on my Instagram page and social media. It was a long time ago.
It was a review of the book Muscle and Shovel.
Oh, it wasn't that. Okay.
I had some concerns about that. And
that's fair.
Everybody was singing its praises, and I thought there was some real damage being done. And, it's interesting. I got nobody reads anything I write, and that's all right. I'm happy with that. I don't like being on the radar.
I think we do. We read it during your sermon.
Right after you wake back up and are trying to remember
read the bulletin.
But that one I got probably 30 or 40 texts, emails, whatever. And 3 or 4 were, you're a horrible person. I can't believe you did to do this. But 30 of them were, thank you.
Thank you. There was something when I read it too that stood out, and you were able to put it into words that made more sense. Yeah.
And so on this podcast, a lot of these episodes have been, you shared a story, and thank you. People are so cool. And
so cool.
I'm so proud of Debbie for going first.
Yeah. Thank you, Debbie.
I'm so proud of Greer for going deep. I'm so proud of Penny. There's nobody who would like to tell her story less than Penny.
Yeah.
But she said, if this helps someone else going through either the side of giving up a child or adopting a child, this will be worth it.
I could sob right now because I remember where I was when I was listening to her and what it did. It brought me to my knees, metaphorically, maybe physically, because of the real raw emotion of the gift that she received after so long. So
post-credit scene about the name of Jacob.
Oh yeah.
To me, that was the coolest thing of the whole episode.
I know. She's amazing. Everybody's amazing. Thank you to the 30 individuals who've already been featured, and to the many more who have already recorded, who have agreed to record. It's because of you guys that this podcast is possible, that we got past 10 episodes. And if you have ideas, let us know, because this is a wonderful avenue, a wonderful opportunity for Matthew for Burns Church of Christ, and for us as a community to share our stories and to bring others closer to Jesus.
Yeah, thanks for trusting us with your stories. Is what I would say.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I loved listening to Paul Harvey and the rest of the story.
Yeah, the rest of the story. My mom still listens.
Mike Rowe has a podcast called The Way I Heard It, and it's basically that again. And this isn't that format or this style. It's not scripted. It's not neat and doesn't have a package. It's a rough draft.
Yeah.
But it's a rough draft of a real story is better than a polished draft of a fairy tale any day.
Yeah.
And this has been so cool. So
absolutely.
Well, friends, thanks for listening.
Yeah.
And I hope that you'll share this with a friend if you want to. We get paid the same either way. It doesn't matter to us.
Right. I got my $100. I'm kidding.
It was Canadian, but I don't know.
All right.
But you know where to find us. We're on Apple, Spotify, Google, all the places.
Facebook. And this has been the Cutting Room Floor.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Have a great week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to Rough Drafts. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. While you are at it, help us spread the word by leaving a rating and review. Until next time, let's keep looking for how God writes His love into our stories.